Standup Accel recap, week 51. One more week, and we've officially done an entire year of accelerator workshops down at the Creek and Cave here in Austin, Texas. Cool little comedy club. Very friendly, very nice of them to let us be down there and do this. This week, again, was Crowdwork. So we're doing Crowdwork all throughout the month of August. Again, I know people in stand-up, the purists like to just do monologue. It doesn't really work that way anymore. Probably never did. At best, stand-up is simulated dialogue. But when it actually turns into real dialogue, then it becomes crowd work. So we're actually working on that. There are 25 people or so there this week, maybe a little bit more than that. I didn't really count. 3 new people, Ray, Helena, and Maya. So it was fun to have them there. First time Gilley and Jilly were both in attendance. So we have a guy, Mike Gilley, and Jilly. I can't remember his first name, but different people, but so close. So close. So we launched in the housekeeping section. We talked more specifically about my Hollywood production system for stand-ups. HIPS, HPSS. I don't know. That's what it's named right now. Basically, the idea is I bring the Hollywood process over into creating viable for-money stand-ups and stand-up shows. So it's committee creative. It's super organized creative. It's creative for money, or at least directed towards money. And that means you need an exec producer, a head writer, a writing staff, a director, yada, yada, yada. You need team in order to do this kind of production. The upside is that if you get a really good team together, you can produce things really fast. So I worked on a few everyday talk shows in Hollywood, and they can put together an entire hour show in a day, half a day, because they've got to do it in the morning, and then it's got to be ready to be taped that evening or that late afternoon. So it's a really interesting process, and it hasn't really been taken over into stand-up. So that's been my idea. So I offer everybody in the workshop that I'll do one bit for you, like a 5-minute bit, whatever it is, on one topic usually, where I will come in and be your exec producer, your head writer, your writing staff, and your director. So keep doing everything else by yourself, develop as authentically as you want. But for one bit, I want to see what we can do of getting you as talent. So everybody else is doing their work. And you can also, clearly if you are a good writer and you want to write, then you can be part of the staff. But the head writer decides what goes on to the final script. And you're talent, so you have to know how to bring it to life. It's interesting. I think it's really good training for people. And I think it will advance people really quickly if they understand it and use it correctly. I've done this with other comics, not in a formalized way in the past, where basically I would just give them a career. Like very early comics who had really a great character to work with or some kind of performative talent and just didn't have script and usually weren't really writers. I would just write them a bunch of material. And the ones that are really good at it would learn that material and almost instantly start at least featuring and then move up to headline really quickly. And because they were super talented and had super assets, they could move into money-making positions like either doing college circuit or corporate or doing commercial auditions or, lots of different things. So it's an interesting idea, and I'm going to keep pushing it to incorporate that into the Stand-Up Accelerator as a side offer. So we went into the career talk. David talked about making $2 in tips from the Pokey Joe show. I think elevating everybody more into money world would change the Austin stand-up scene quite a bit, and it would definitely elevate the workshop. So we're going to keep pushing for that in our career work. Then we moved to the skills development part of the workshop, which is the meat of the workshop. Again, on crowd work. So in the first week, I went through a lot of different concepts about crowd work. And then we focused on doing exotic crowd work, which means asking exotic, interesting, super stimulating questions versus there are 2 main categories of information you can ask for from the crowd. There's mundane, which is your name, your occupation, your region, where you're from, things like that. After that, it basically turns more exotic. So you're asking for personal experiences or you're delving into demographic information like your age and your gender and your relationship status, your ethnicity, things like that. And that gets more interesting and more explosive and triggery and all the things that make people pay attention. So we practiced this second week on mundane crowd work, because last week we did exotic questions. So I had everybody go up. I had everybody do a writing exercise first where they interviewed each other and got name, occupation, and region. And it's not just gathering those dry pieces of information. It's drilling down into those where you can pull out details and variations and sub-information so that those things become interesting enough to talk about on stage. Then we did our stage work section of the workshop, which is kind of the most, sort of funnest part of the workshop, where people get up and perform the stuff that we just talked about. So we had, 10, 12 people go up and do mundane crowd work, which, again, it's named mundane, but it can't stay mundane. Like, you go into these ordinary, maybe I should call it ordinary crowd work. You find somebody's name, their occupation, and their region, and then you instantly turn that into comedy. Again, often by speed drilling down into details. For example, Ray, who was new at the workshop, I asked her what she did. I talked about her name, then asked her what she did, or somebody else asked her what she did. And she's a writer. I think she was a writer. Or I know her husband was a writer, because he writes for InfoWars, which, if you don't know, is a radical right-wing podcast that has been disbanded, basically, because it was sued out of existence. But he writes for that, and so that's super interesting. It's on a mundane or ordinary topic, but you drill down and you find really interesting things. So a lot of people went up. I think probably the most fun was watching Maya, who's her first time here. Said she'd been doing stand-up for about 6 months. And she went up and did really good crowd work with Charles and Nick, who are both sitting together, but they're both wearing hats, which isn't a particularly interesting thing, but it's something she picked up on. And she basically did 3 or 4 jokes in a row about them being a couple. And Charles is in his 60s and Nick's probably in his 20s. And so it was really funny. And she did that, roasted them a bit as a couple. And it didn't get particularly negative, but the jokes were sharp and it was fun to watch. So lots of people went up, like I said, and it's really fun to get in there and watch people do this. And I've had people ask me why I can't record these so that you can see the full workshop. And there's a lot of reasons, but partly it's like this. A lot of people went up. I'd have to get permission to use all their different stuff. And you're doing things that you may or may not want online. Like, part of the thing of stand-up is that you want to control your clips because you want to control your brand. So if you want to end up wanting to do corporate comedy and you just go up and have fun and just even get, filthy or, incredibly offensive just for fun as you're exploring this stuff, you may not want that out online. So there's that. There's the technical side of having to record all this. And again, I don't have a team. Like, this isn't set up fully as a production company yet. So it would just be me. And I'm not really interested in doing that just right now. Then it'd have to be edited, yada, yada, yada. So these summaries are the best we can get for now. But again, everybody's always welcome to come down to the accelerator. It's free. It's a couple of hours on Sundays where you can really explore some of these concepts. So finally, we're going to keep going on these crowd work sessions. I think we have 2 more at least. And again, the idea is to take these concepts, intellectualized concepts, and let people turn them into action. Get some praxis, as they call it in the Greek, of bringing those things to life and actually inhabiting them and doing them. And you're starting to see, even across 2 weeks, people that have come back to both sessions are starting to get it. Pieces of it where they can be like, they're quicker, they're better at gathering information, they're better at more relaxed about turning it into comedy. So we'll keep working on this. And next week, everybody's bringing in pre-written exotic topics, so we'll use those as content again. But we're actually going to be doing domination next week, this coming week, about how do you dominate an entire room. Because one of the things about crowd work is you have to be in super control. You can't let anybody else in the crowd take power. If you let them take a little bit of power, you have to instantly take it back. So we're going to talk about how you do that and what techniques make that work. So there you go. We will be back next week with more about crowd work and the Stand-Up Accelerator Workshop.